From the skies to the depths to the surface. My name is Dragon Gaming, and welcome to the Legend of Groups. Tears of the King.
Yo, you've got it wrong, man.
Doesn't that? What do you mean that's not right?
Yeah, you kinda got the wrong game.
That's not the right game?
Yep, wrong game.
So we're gonna talk about the Legend of Roscoe, right?
I'm flattered, but no.
Not that either? Not even. We're not gonna talk about Monkey Rising, are we?
Not that one yet.
We still have yet to make that video.
I said not yet.
I haven't even beat that game.
It's a Legend of Zelda, you idiot.
Oh! Okay. Hey. Okay, so we're on the Legend of Zelda. Tears of the Kingdom. Okay.
It's about time.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Alright. Now that we have that sorted out, I want to give a quick shout out to AzeliaStarisa, who provided the water temple footage for this video. If it wasn't for her, this video would not be 100% complete. So if you are of age 13 and up, and you want to go over and give Azelia a hey, what's up, then feel free to do so at twitch.tv/AzeliaStarisa, or just tell her hey. Thanks. Alright, on with the video. Alright. So, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. That was released back in May, and I had planned to do this video like late May, early June, and I just haven't got to it. But we've got to it. And you know me, I do things super late. And it's not that much. Alright. Let's get into my review of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. First off, we need to understand exactly where Breath of the Wild left off. So Link wakes up after 100 years in the Shrine of Resurrection, defeats the inside of 4 Divine Beasts, uses 4 Divine Beasts to destroy Ganon with the help of Princess Zelda of Hyrule. Tears of the Kingdom takes place about 5 to 7 years after the events of Breath of the Wild, because some people have gotten taller and some NPCs didn't even exist back then, and we've got an entire company in charge of restoring Hyrule. Alright, I want to go ahead and take the similarities. Let's go straight into the very beginning. The prologue, which is probably my most interesting prologue of the Zelda games to date. You have Link and Zelda exploring underneath Hyrule Castle to investigate Gloom. It's basically some really bad substance that can be reanimated into living hands. You gotta love those hands. The Gloom hands, the Gloom spawn, we'll get into those in a bit. After exploring, Zelda runs across ancient Zonai statues. This game is 100% about the Zonai, with Zonai devices, Zonai secret stones, and Dragonification, a Zonai ritual which has since been forbidden. Furthermore, they explore into the depths of Hyrule Castle. Princess Zelda runs across with Link a trapped Ganondorf and a random hand. Coming across this hand, Zelda runs across the secret stone and gets teleported back in time, while Link is staged by the hand to go to the Great Sky Island. As Hyrule Castle is being lifted into the sky by Ganondorf, it is causing what is known as the upheaval, or certain chasms, which are in the same places as some towers and shrines from Breath of the Wild, just start opening up that weren't there before. And caves that weren't open before, they're now open. And they didn't exist back then, but they do now. Along with strange phenomena in 4 regions of the world. Link's quest is to go to these regions and solve their problems. From a blizzard to really messed up candy to sludge and a sand shroud. he must go to the Rito, Goron, Zora, and Gerudo lands to solve this phenomenon. Alright, let's talk about the Zonai. Let's actually talk a little bit more about the Zonai Gacha machines in particular. Every game has got to have Gacha game, and Zelda is no exception. Throughout the game, you can find these things called Zonai charges, which are used in ceremonies, or really to power up your battery on your energy cell to use your Zonai devices, or fly around, or create your infamous hover bike. That's really fun. It's the equivalent of the Sheikah's Link in this version. That's a little bit more like Link's new right hand. But we'll go into Rauru in a minute. Because Zonai Gacha machines, you take Zonai Construct Horns, or Zonai Charges, large or regular, toss them into these machines, and you get Zonai Capsules. Zonai Capsules have Zonai devices, and Zonai devices are Korok torture machines, if you know how to use them correctly. Because that's what everybody does. You know, we already had to hunt down 900 of those guys in Breath of the Wild, so with 1,000 of them are in Tears of the Kingdom, between the sky and the surface, how can we not mess with them? Or mess with them for their own torture? Alright, let's talk about Rauru. Rauru is King Rome's replacement in the Great Sky Island. He's the first ever king of Hyrule. And he is Zonai origin. Him and his older sister Minoru, the Sage of Spirit, are the only two Zonai left. Or, well, they've been both dead by the time Tears of the Kingdom rolled around. But, who knows? Maybe we'll figure out something. He has the power over light. And his wife, Sonia, a Hylian, has power over time. The Great Sky Island originally starts you off by running into your decayed Master Sword and using it a little bit to clear your way to the Great Sky Island's opening. I consider the Great Sky Island Great Plateau new and improved. As not only is it up in the sky, but it forces a linearity to it that Breath of the Wild's Great Plateau didn't really give you. And to be fair, Great Plateau and Breath of the Wild in particular were meant to explore. But you could enter any of those shrines any path you wanted. And have changed the path that you wanted several times. But in Tears of the Kingdom, it really kind of directs you to what shrines you need to go to, and doesn't give you all of them at the start. It gives you 3 of them. Then afterwards, you head straight to the door. Really, you can't open it yet, and you have to go back and complete one more shrine using Recall. 3 of these abilities are assumed to be Rauru's, with the final one, Recall, being given to you by Zelda, and also originally from Sonia, Queen Sonia. Alright, we're gonna get past the Great Sky Island and dive into the depths of Hyrule. We're gonna go from the sky to the depths. Depths, for every piece of water there is on the surface, there's a giant impassable wall. So your islands are really fun to get through. But for every mountain on the surface of the world, like Mount Hylia, for instance, on the Great Plateau, there's either a mine or there's a canyon. Most of them are canyons, but for Mount Hylia in particular, you have mines underneath the great settlements, like Hateno, and, what was this other one? Terrytown. Rito's got a mine. Zora's got a mine. Gerudo also has a mine. And Death Mountain. But Death Mountain is probably the only settlement where they don't have a mine. Their mines are on the surface. If you get down into Death Mountain, you'll find one of the 4 dungeons. Well, technically 5 and 6 if you count the castle. But into the depths there's a bunch of poes and new enemies and an abundance of gloom. Gloom is a substance that if you touch it, it will start stealing your life away. And if you start stealing your life away, it will start taking away your hearts. And trust me, eating food will not heal the gloom resistant hearts. But for every 120 shrines on the surface, you get 120 light roots right underneath them in the depths. There's waypoints of sorts. Speaking of shrines, there's 152 of those things in the game. There was 120 of them in Breath of the Wild, but you have 32 of those suckers in the sky and 120 of those on the surface. All for a piece of clothing. That makes you kind of like a goat. Or something, I don't know. I'm not even trying to figure out what that is. Alright, let's go straight from the Great Sky Island to the dungeons. Let's talk about the dungeons. Now, I'm going to start them off in chronological order, the ones you're supposed to do, and move your way around. And that means we're going to start at the Rito dungeon. The Rito dungeon is probably the most divine beastie of them all. It's basically right up there in the air. Now, Rito's habitat. There's something cool about it. It's a boss. Out of every boss there is in every dungeon, it's probably the most memorable. Not only your first one, most likely if you've been following the story, but it's also the easiest one to take out. Kogera. Now, Kogera just flies around, has a bunch of ice, and has caused a blizzard to sweep over Rito Village. The entire dungeon, while I like it, is, like I said, more divine beastie. But it also kind of feels a little bit between your original dungeons and also the Divine Beast. One big drawback about these dungeons compared to traditional Zelda dungeons is they're not really as linear. There's only one of them, 2 of them, actually, that seems pretty linear as far as paths. But one is a little better at that than the other. One thing you will notice about these dungeons is not only is it not as linear, but it's basically the same thing as Divine Beast, where it's collect 4 terminals or hit 5 of this and get to the main boss room. There is also no particular way to get any new item. One thing I really did not like about each dungeon, and you'll fear this when we go into either further dungeons, is none of them really have a distinct style except for maybe 2 or 3 of them. The Wind Temple has this giant airship and is the subject of a song of Rito, which becomes true. Which is its way of being good about it. It's very simple, especially on your way up, but you do have to use Tulin's ability a lot more. Also introduces you to the stages returning. But we'll talk about the stages separately, because it's also got a drawback. From there, you're supposed to go to the Elden region and help the Gorons out. You've got marbled rock redstone. I'm thinking of something completely different for cobbled, but you've got this marbled rock rust. It is the best new candy on the block. You've got the young Gorons, but mostly you've got a lot of the older Gorons, including Yunobo, attached to it. And it was given to them by Princess. Did I mention she went missing? Yeah, so Princess Zelda's been gone missing after the upheaval, and we find out through Dragon's Quest Tears quest line a bunch of geoglyphs in the ground that she's gone back in time to the original stages. Rauru, Sonia, them all. And I think I'm going to talk about that a little separately because I want to spend this entire segment on it. But you have its own miniature boss, if you would call it that, when you get up to Death Mountain and breaking Nebo out of his trance. Which I think is probably the best mini-boss leading up to a dungeon we have gotten. It's my personal favorite. But oh well. Alright, now for the Goron dungeon. This is one of the ones I was talking about where we seemed a little near, but for lack of better words, selective being linear. If you built infamous hover bike that's been surfing the internet, you could literally do this dungeon within 10 minutes, 5 minutes max. And again, you use your elbow and hit 5 gongs to open a door, then chase after Princess Zelda and fight the boss. That's pretty much that entire thing. I think a lot of that difficulty is figuring out how to get to them. Or if you are like me, you said, I give up and we're going to ascend and climb throughout the entire temple. Now, from there, I don't think that temple isn't the hardest when you actually figure out what you're doing. Particularly as far as Zelda dungeons go, the water temple is usually your easier one. Or no, it's a lot harder. So it's probably your most memorable. But your fire temples are the ones that are usually your easiest ones. Yeah, that got switched around this time. The old ancient Grandia city is in the depths, which I have an entire theory on this on its own, but it makes you wonder if the Gorons moved out of Death Mountain to be on the surface, what forced them there? This was rejoined a home of Gorons. Not that bad of a dungeon, but it could have been structured a little differently. Now, we're going to go. I'm going to save the gorilla for last. And we're going to move ourselves over to the Zora's Domain. Zora's Domain, it's got an almost complete overhaul from where it was in Breath of the Wild. It's covered in sludge, which is not that nice for Zora. But you've got a couple weapons up your sleeve. The King's Scales, Splash Fruit, and many others. So you can wipe away the sludge with ease. One of the easiest ways to do it is head straight into town, pick up some Splash Fruit, and take the statue in the square and reveal the sludge from it. To reveal a statue of Prince Sidon and a Link from Breath of the Wild. Originally in Breath of the Wild, this was a statue of Mipha, but that got moved to Wilderness Mountain with her own dedicated Mipha court. Upgrade your armor a little bit by doing a little quest there for the new Queen-in-Waiting, Queen Yona. I say Queen because Sidon will become King after your quest line. You go there and you figure out ancient waterworks. You go up and you get yourself to this temple. It is probably the easiest temple out of them all besides the Wind Temple. It didn't really take you that much, but the boss is really annoying. Mukta Rock. Insert Mukta Rock. Oh boy. This shark octopus thing is probably my least favorite boss to refight. Yes, you can refight these bosses. In the depths, in certain spots, there are areas where you can refight them. The first time you refight them, you'll get a reward. But you can always just go back to the spots after a blood moon and fight them again. So, after this whole shenanigan, we're going to move straight to the Gerudo in the Lightning Temple. Now, I think this is probably the most interesting questline of them all, and that's personally my opinion on this one. You're taking a little more grown-up Riju, who's now been able to harness lightning, and have to fight anybody. These new species of enemy, the Gypto. And they are, don't try fighting them with regular weapons because that's going to dent your weapons. You need elemental weapons to damage these guys. Or at least weaken them to a point where you can hit them with a sword and they'll go down. There's an entire questline where you have to defend Gerudo City, Gerudo Town, from these guys, and then raise your temple. Raise your temple up, and this one at the beginning was a little bit more linear, and then it opens up to where just however you want to tackle it, which is probably its biggest downfall. Couple of linear rooms, then a big open area. The boss, Queen though, took me way too long to defeat the first time. I think it was probably the hardest one. Yeah, until you realize what you're doing. She was probably the hardest one. But after you complete your 4 temples, except for the Council and the Spirit Temple, which we talked about that a little bit with Minoru, and you have to go in the depths for this one, and fight a contract of hers to get her secret stone. But at the end of your 4 main temples, you have a secret stone that is given to the descendants. Well, these secret stones are Zonai in origin, and they were given by King Rauru to these sages because it amplified abilities of theirs. Oh, that's cool. Now, what will happen is your sages now get them. One of the biggest downfalls about the sages this time around is the same, except for the exception of Minoru. The same exact cutscene, the exact same information, 4 different times. I'm basically skipping that first cutscene. Minoru does it, but she adds a little bit more context and takes it from a Zonai specific route. Instead of, hey, my fellow sages and I, we fought the Demon King, he's too powerful, and Rauru sacrificed himself, so I met with Zelda, Sage of Time, and she told me Zora needs to help Link. Oh, the region needed help Link, so here's the secret stone. Yeah, well, you don't want to hear that 4 different times. Alright, we're gonna move from there into Beetle. Beetle makes an appearance again. His first canonical one in the timeline is Skyward Sword, and you make sure you buy something from Beetle. He does not like people that do not like skimming his goods. If you don't buy something from him, he will plan to rob you, more or less, or drop you from his airship, whichever version you're at. Now, one of the big disappointments of mine of Tears of the Kingdom is the absence of songs or musical instruments. Speaking of, Cass, a retail bard, is mentioned about once after you complete the Sightings of Princess Zelda side quest, but he's not in the game. And music to be a major gameplay component is also not in that game. That was a big staple before Breath of the Wild to be a major part of the game. A lot of people, myself included, thought that was going to come back in Tears of the Kingdom. Boss Rush. So in every Zelda game, there's been some sort of boss rush, at least starting from Ocarina of Time. I mentioned that you can refight the bosses from the temples, with the exception of Minoru's. Well, problem is, there's no boss rush, which means you take on the bosses one after another, after another, after another. I mean, you can kind of set up your own boss rush, but it wasn't point in that. There is now, and that was honestly probably my favorite part of Skyward Sword. This is one of my favorite parts of Skyward Sword, but that's gotta be a good standout. Alright, let's head into the Demon King. Demon King Demise, and Demon King Ganondorf. Let's talk about each of them. How does this battle start? In Skyward Sword, it's mainly you get there, and Girahim sends out a bunch of his minions out to stop you from stopping his ceremony, which you ultimately run through and fight as many people as possible. Run through. It's not on a time limit, but you can outright do that. Tears of the Kingdom, you hop down to where you can find Ganondorf at Gloom's origin, and almost looks like you have to do the same thing until the other stages step in to prevent you, help you out. That, I think, although I was kind of hoping for the same, I think that's probably the biggest difference of both fights. Let's talk a little bit more about the Ganondorf fight versus the Demise fight. In the Demise fight, it's just you, Demise, and swords. And he controls it so you can't use your Skyward Strike from that game. And you have to take him down. He shoots lightning. You catch that lightning, use that as your own Skyward Strike. Get him on his back, deliver enough blows or enough powerful blows, and do a fatal blow. Ganondorf, he also does almost the same thing, but even on phase 1, he can take down some of your maximum hearts, so be careful. You're going to have to use every last bit of combat you know. Flurry rushes, parrying, piling of pine cones. You're going to have to use it all to destroy him. And the Master Sword is more or less required for the fight because it does not lose durability. Yes, durability is still a thing in Tears of the Kingdom, but it seems like Refuse has made things a little better. The Master Sword, if it's not a Phantom Ganon or a Ganondorf, it starts taking damage. But if it's those two, then it doesn't take any damage or hits on its durability, which is pretty cool. Now, Ganondorf switches between 3 different weapons in this fight: a Gloom Sword, a Gloom Club, and a Gloom Spear. If you stand too far or in the air, he will be able to shoot you with Demon King's bow, so you might want to watch out for that. But you can literally go out pretty much the entire fight without him ever drawing out his bow, except for one specific instance, but you want to try to get in close enough where he doesn't do that. So, once you start flurry rushing, you start wanting to attack back, Ganondorf will do that. What I found to be the easiest way, instead of trying to time your flurry rushes again, because he will not flurry rush twice, which I've seen him flurry rush several times after I've tried flurry rushing him, is to hold out your shield and parry him right after you just that. You'll leave him stunned and open for you to hit him with the Master Sword. Now, then the second phase 2 of the fight, where he accesses the power of the Secret Stone, he goes full on Demise Demon King. He powers up. And his most part, goes a lot further past his name. The stages will help you till you get that about halfway down. Then, phase 3, he knocks them all down. And this is the part where I struggled the most because I got one. It's basically the same strategy as the first one, but you have to pay a lot more attention because he has a few more different moves. What I found to be the most helpful was using pinecone trick used during the Rito quest line. Just throw a piece of wood out, set it on fire, throw a hat on pinecone, create an updraft, hop up there, and shoot him with a line. You do that with key slide balls or a bunch of bombs, and preferably hit him in the head with those, and you do yourself a pretty good favor and end the fight pretty quickly. So, considering that in this is a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, let's compare the final two boss fights. The final in-game bosses. The Demon Dragon and Dark Beast Cannon. We're going to talk about Dark Beast Cannon first from Breath of the Wild. It's Ganon's hatred incarnate, just out on line, and his last resort to stay alive as you and Zelda team up to take this Ganon down. I'll be honest with you, as I got these clips that you're seeing on screen right now, I realized this fight was sometimes more boring than the Demon Dragon fight. Because you're just running around on a horse, bow of light, to glowing areas. That's it. That's that fight. In the Demon Dragon, you do somewhat of the same thing, but you have to pay attention to where you're skydiving to. You've got two dragons featured in the logo, the Light Dragon and Demon Dragon. Ganondorf in his more like swallowing the secret stone, Dragonification, an irreversible form, just swirling around, while you go on top of the Demon Dragon and destroy his weak points. Do that several times. You can head out and destroy his secret stone, and use the Master Sword to destroy him from there. That's it. Now, while Dark Beast Cannon was mainly just a one-phase thing, I consider the Demon Dragon to have two different phases to it. The one where you're hitting everything on his back, and the one where you're hitting the secret stone. There's also probably Hyrule's first version of a atomic weapon, because you destroy him. My favorite part of that entire ending. Alright, let's do ourselves a favor. Let's not get ahead of myself here. What fight do I like more? I think it's pretty obvious at this point, but I like the Demon Dragon fight and the Demon King Ganondorf fight better than Calamity Ganon or Dark Beast Ganon. I think those were complete step-ups. Now, let's talk about a little bit of the ending here and my ending thoughts. Alright. Breath of the Wild's ending has several different versions of it that you got by completing a certain amount of steps. Tears of the Kingdom, as far as I know, only has two of them. You've got your regular ending that you get at the very end of the game, where Zelda and Link are skydiving, and grab their hands and fall into a pond, which that pond is not named, but you can find it on the map. I did try looking at it to see if it had a name. It didn't have a name. And then you've got the true ending that happens afterwards, where you collect every last stage, all of the Dragon Tears quests, which are memories and cutscenes, and you get the Master Sword and complete regional phenomena, all the other fun stuff. But before I talk about that ending, though, we need to talk about the Dragon's Tears. I knew I was missing something. Dragon's Tears, Light Dragon, geoglyphs that are telling memories of the story. Link has to go find them and learn what Zelda's been doing in the past. It talks about Rauru and Sonia. It also talks about, let's see, how the Great Plateau looked. It talks about Ganondorf. And it shows a little bit of a nod, if not a complete reference, to Ocarina of Time, where Ganondorf is pleading fatality to Rauru. Now, there's a lot of callbacks throughout the game to previous Zelda titles, from Demon King Ganondorf and Demon King Demise to the dragons, and most likely Dragification. There's even the Triforce reference on Sonia's arm, although it does not make any physical appearance like it did in any other Zelda game besides Breath of the Wild. That did not really make an appearance either. It's more focused on Zone A Secret Stones this time around. And there's lots of mentions to Wind Waker and every other game. But that's beside the point. Now, we've talked about this, and one of the main criticisms that I've seen of the Dragon's Tears, and I would agree with this, is you can find certain parts of the story early on that are halfway into the story. If I'm not mistaken, I think one of my first ones was Dragification. And I kind of figured out, wait a minute, Zelda's going to be, she's going to get her secret stone. She's to drop one of the dragons. I figured that part out before anything else. I think it was one of the very early ones. Or Minotaur's Council, right after the very first one. So, you can just find those in any order and spoil that story and the emotions leading up to it for yourself. One of the things I would really wish would got changed is it plays those memories in order as you collect those tears. There are a couple of memories and cutscenes that happen as the story progresses, but if you're going to leave them in geographical locations like this, you need to tie each specific one to itself. So, in other words, if I would go to the Ganondorf one in the Gerudo Highlands, and I haven't gotten the first one yet, it would show the first one, but when I look at it on the map, it points to the specific memory. This is the one you should have got at this point. To be fair, if you go to the Forgotten Temple, it does give you a little small portion where it tells you, hey, these are the order you should be getting these in. But since you can just find them whenever, it kind of hurts that part of the story. You can find the Master Sword one and the Dragification one, put the two together, and you figure out Zelda's Light Dragon. And you don't even have to watch the rest of it. Alright. Let's talk about the final ending here, and then we're going to talk about the credits and wrap things up. So, the final ending, that true ending, takes you back to the Great Sky Island to Vapura, Zelda, Riju, Link, Sidon, Yunobo, and Tulin, as well as Minoru, the Sage's spirit. And they're back on the Great Sky Island, back to the point where Zelda and Link get and give the Master Sword to one another. Now, when you start really looking at it, it's basically to me, a scene that says, now this video is made after the announcement that there is no plan to DLC. There is no planned DLC for all the Tears of the Kingdom, and they're probably going to just start working on the next installment. This video was made after that announcement, but even before this announcement, it seemed to me, especially from how Zelda worded a bunch of it, and I don't have that exact transcript in front of me right now, so I'm not going to try replicating it word for word, but it seemed like it was a send-off to the Era of the Wild. And not only the Era of the Wild, but, and this is just me throwing something out there, but maybe also a send off to Zelda in general. I doubt that. Zelda is one of Nintendo's moneymakers, so it's definitely a send off to the era of the Wild, though. Alright, let's wrap things up here. You know, a lot of people were hoping for a playable Zelda, including myself. In the beginning, there is kind of that, to an extent, not really much. If the memories for Zelda were done similarly to Skyward Sword's credits, then I think it would have been great, if not awesome. This game would not only take it from about 9.5 out of 10 to a 12 out of 10, then I think it would have been great. So what you're going to see on screen right now is Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword credits, where some of Zelda's adventure is showcased throughout that credit sequence. I wish they did the same thing with the Dragon Tier memories, or some of the stuff from Zelda's time in the past. I really wish they did, and I really wish this was the case in Breath of the Wild as well, looking back, but I don't know, I think that would have helped much. I don't know, I want to know your thoughts about Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. What would you would have changed? What would you keep? I like the game as it is, but I would have changed a little bit of it and included a little bit more music to it as well, to kind of help out a little bit more on that end. But I mean, it's okay. The depths aren't really that exciting. They are when you first get into them, but after you visit the depths like 100 times, you completely map them out. And you're like, okay, there's not really much here except for a couple of boss rematches, foes, and 2 temples. The sky isn't much to look at either because it's just a couple of sky islands and 2 temples, and more or less some fun stuff to get working that way as well. So you rework those 2 sections, and like I said, take a 9 out of 5 or a 9.5 out of 10 game and make it a 12.5 or even a 13 out of 10, and you would have gotten a pretty good game. It's a good game of its own, but you would have made it one of the best in my book. Right now, Skyward Sword still tops it, and I was kind of hoping that Tears of the Kingdom would overthrow that. Alright, that is my little ramble on Tears of the Kingdom and how I compare it to Breath of the Wild. But like I said, let me know what you think. Go check out Azelia, who gave us the Monkey Rock footage and the Zora footage, and go for free to subscribe to the channel, leave likes on the video if you like this sort of content, and if you like the editor and how well this was all put together, this is the first video like it that he's done. So go subscribe to Bosco Senpai as well. Their links are here. And I shall see you guys in the next one. Bosco, please edit that out. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll tell you later.